1-1 pitch to Schmidt. Swing, a long drive, that is going to be...
Decades since his retirement, Mike Schmidt's name still echoes through the annals of sports history.
He played 18 years in the big leagues, all with the Phillies. A true Philadelphia lifer.
Tonight, we have gathered to pay tribute to the greatest third baseman who ever played this beautiful game.
To the greatest player in Phillies history.
I feel he's the greatest third baseman that has ever played the game.
Beyond his offensive prowess, Schmidt's defensive skills were equally impressive.
And above all, our thanks for everything, Mike Schmidt.
The 3-0 pitch. Swing, a long drive! There it is! Number 500!
Number 20 has officially been retired. Next thing we look forward to is 1995, when he will be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
To top it all off, in 2004, a larger-than-life statue of Schmidt was unveiled outside Citizens Bank Park, permanent reminder of his inspiring career.
I have a short message for you tonight. First, my faith in God. God is the source for all my strength, physical and mental. My faith in Him provided a foundation for my life and my career, especially in the tough times. I met my wife Donna in 1973, and we were married 6 months later. With her, I developed a strong sense of responsibility. I'm blessed with 2 wonderful children who require me to set a strong example. All kids need heroes. This is more important than any home run or any statistic. All these fade with time, but being a positive role model, both on and off the field, help others become better human beings. I don't know where life's going to lead, but the Phillies and Philadelphia will forever hold a very special place in my heart. Thank you all. God bless you. Thank you all.
Michael Jack Schmidt. Give it up, brothers. Michael Jack Schmidt. All right.
Thank you so much, everybody. That was very nice. It was also nice to look at that video and see that hair.
Hey, Mike, as I always say, I don't care what color it is. I wish it stayed on top of my head. But Mike had never seen that video. Bill, great job. Joyful Films put that together. Bill Rose back there and the team did a wonderful job.
Yes, they did.
And, you know, Mike, as you know, well, not everybody here knows, but the only time I watched baseball was when Mike was playing. And then after he stopped playing, I just stopped watching. And, well, we've been blessed to have a wonderful friendship, I think, for over 40 years now, Mike.
Yeah, we have.
And we had a company, a sister company of Mita Leasing called Mita Marine. And, right. And the way we got together is we sold a boat to Von Hayes 5 for 1. This is back in, you guys remember that, huh?
Our friendship has cost me at least $500,000. He sold me my first boat. 35 boats later, you know, I'm about $500,000 down.
But boy, did we have fun. And I remember that was the first time, Mike, you and I met. And Von called me up and he said, hey, Schmidt wants to get a boat. I said, no way. He says, yeah. So I called Bill Leeson Gleason. I said, Bill, go pick up, you know, let's pick up Von Hayes, then go pick up, you know, Mike and come over to Deerfield Drive and we'll go down to beautiful Metropolis in Northeast Maryland. And we just had a great time then, Mike. We had the jet skis, we had the boat. Now, do you remember when we delivered the boat? I forget.
Oh, absolutely. Now, this is a funny story, and I won't, I won't let it get too long, but we went down to Sarasota. You sold me a Wellcraft 43 Portofino, and that's kind of a Italian-looking cabin cruiser, and delivery didn't happen on time, it's the case with most boats. So Hughes and I flew down to Sarasota, Florida to take delivery at the Wellcraft factory, and it wasn't ready when we got there. It was going to take like 2 days. So what Hughes arranged for me was to have a ladder in the back of the boat. The boat was in, slings, it was on a lift, and it was hanging in slings off the water about 10 feet, or off the land, about 10 feet. So we put a ladder behind it, and we got up on it and got dark, and we hired a guy to push it back and forth.
True story. So we spent the night on the boat. I don't know how long the guy was out there. I think we might have had a Miller Lite or two, Mike, but I know one thing. We didn't get seasick, but we definitely felt like we were on the water.
That's right.
So that was the beginning of a beautiful and loving friendship. And, it's been a great journey, Mike, a great privilege for me. And every once in a while in your life, you run against somebody who the world hails as the great. We talk about Brady in football, and even Brooks Robinson admits that, Mike is the GOAT when it comes to third base. And I think
the late Brooks Robinson, who we lost about a year ago. Brooks inspired all of us third basemen, so to speak. He was the man that brought third base sort of like into a skill position, as they call them now. And Brooks, 16 Gold Gloves, and Hall of Famer, of course, and a wonderful man. And was so sorry to lose him about a year ago. But for him to say that, that's sort of like even better than being, so to speak, in the Hall of Fame. That's a heck of a statement to have about yourself.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, Mike, after 40 years, I've learned many things about you. And one of the things that always impressed Susie and I the most is your humility. And even along the way, when you and I met, Mike was actually not the highest paid baseball player. You were the highest paid guy in sports. And I saved those was on the cover of USA Today, and I saved those covers. And I remember saying to Sue, you know what, this has no effect on Mike whatsoever. And that's when I realized that Mike Schmidt never knew he was Mike Schmidt. And
well, occasionally after a couple of strikeouts at Vet Stadium, I remembered who I was.
That's right. We all know the Philly fans are relentless, and that's why Mike spent his whole career here, and played in Philly, and lived in Philly, and loved in Philly, and I think a couple things too, Mike, and I think I speak for myself, and the guys are saying it here today, that you are not what I would call an extroverted person, and people sometimes mistake that for being aloof. And I can tell you, after 40 years, there's not a bigger hearted man. I can tell you, there's probably 10 guys here at least, and I have many, many friends here in the audience. And I know one thing: if I ever got in a jam, no matter what, Mike would be there. And I think a great mark of a man, and he's not going to say it, so I have to in this interview, but a great mark of a man is how he treats his wife and how he treats his children. And equally important is how he treats other people's wives and other people's children. And I can tell you, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. I think Susie's gone, so I'm safe here. But
well, you've already gotten enough brownie points from her earlier today. Didn't you talk to us about how you stared at her about how beautiful she really was, and you didn't?
I did. And I was thinking the same thing when I was looking at Donna up there. And Mike, you should know too, I spoke to Donna as I am one to do. Donna had a birthday here recently. And I said, Donna, it's been, 40 some years now that you and Donna have been married? I think 46?
40 plus 10.
Yeah, so 5-0. Give him some love. That's right, I forgot. It was 50 this year, right?
I believe I believe one of our wonderful speakers earlier today touched on him being, what did he say, was it Danny that said he was 30 years old?
Yeah, Danny, yes.
And he said, and he owes it to just saying she's right about everything. Well, I'm 50. Right. I've been married for 50 years, and I just don't even question anything she says.
Well, I'll tell you, he's not kidding around. I can remember coming back from the stadium, and Mike and I, back in the 80s, it was so great because I'd drive down to the stadium with him before practice. And my brothers, I can tell you, first one at practice and last to leave. First one at practice and last to leave. I was there. I saw it many, many times. And we'd go into the stadium, as you can imagine. And Mike's just getting inundated. And no matter where we went, no matter where he went, they knew it was Mike Schmidt. But boy, I'll tell you, as soon as we got in that door on 24 Lakewood Drive, that was the end of it. He was not the man anymore. He was Donna's husband, okay? Well, and there were chores to do around that house, a lot of chores, I can tell you.
There's, I like you said earlier, and I consider it a good personality trait. I have never, in anything I've done, golf especially, which is kind of like my sport after retirement, wanted to bring attention to myself or be braggadocious or anything like that. I mean, I always feel they're baseball gods, if you will. You all heard that, and they're football gods and basketball, golf gods. You've heard the term golf gods, and that's not really true. There's only one. Our God is there's only one, but they frown on that. The minute you start telling everybody how good you are, the next thing you know, they bring you back down to earth. But no, I never have been comfortable. But you hit on something a little bit ago that, just my nature, but the way that the way that I walked, the way that I played third base, the way that I struck out, the way that I hit a home run was just me. I mean, it wasn't an act. It was just, and it tended to project an aloof personality, and I just wish I didn't have that, but I know I fought that a lot, the whole Mr. Cool thing when I played here in Philadelphia, and I think that all kind of died out as we got into the mid-'80s, close to retirement, but that was one of the tough things. It may sound crazy, a tough thing about being me was I didn't want to project, but you got to realize also when I grew up, when I was a little boy, baseball players like Hank Aaron, Joe DiMaggio, Frank Robinson, you go back to the Mickey Mantles, and all those guys that played during that era of the 60s, late 50s, 60s, were that kind of personality guys. Nobody brought attention to themselves like players do nowadays. They played the game with respect, with great respect for their opposition, especially the opposing pitchers. No one really wanted to show an opponent up like they do now, but I mean, it's okay because everybody does it now. I don't like it because it wasn't the way it was when I played, but the entertainment factor on the field nowadays is just totally out of hand. But it is in football as well, and it is in basketball as well. But it's just the way that the current generation is going, with their sporting personalities. But when I played, when I was a kid, my idols, the guys I looked up to, had more of a nice, easygoing, quiet, respectful personality on the field.
Mike, you and I talked about it last. Exactly. So Mike and I were talking last night, and we were actually talking about football. And I said to him, Mike, maybe that's why they call them the me generation in this generation that's playing, because it's about me. It's not giving glory to God. And one of the things I think that, I don't want my children are all grown, you, Mike, and everybody, they all have their own children now, but I don't want my grandchildren to see they haven't even won the game. They're down 3 touchdowns, and they're back there, because they caught a pass, and they're, yeah, me. I mean, it's the lack of humility.
When you look around this audience out here, and I've met a lot of the people that are here, I mean, there's not a lot of me generation people here in the audience, but I don't understand it. You make a tackle, and every time you make a tackle, it's like it's the first tackle you ever made in your life, you know, or the last tackle you're ever going to make in your life, right? Every time you dunk a ball over somebody, it's like you're threatening to kill the guy, right? After you've dunked all over him, and of course we've seen with the Phillies here, we see a lot of that, you know. We see a lot of overexcitement when you actually do something. It's not the first time you do it. I mean, everything looks like it's the first time they've done anything. Now, the name Utley just came into my mind, right? Nothing like that. Do you ever see a player that plays the game with more respect for the game and his teammates and his opponents than Chase Utley? And I really know, deservedly so, he is one of the most upheld players in Philadelphia history. There's no question about it. And I hope for the Hall of Fame, as the years go on, that he gets a lot closer and maybe gets a shot. So, yeah, he's a good friend of mine, and he lives in London now. He's helping to promote baseball in London. And Phillies will be going to London this year, June 8th and 9th. And Chase is in charge of that whole connection between Major League Baseball and the Phillies this year. They'll be playing a weekend series in London.
Well, you know, Mike, since we're talking about God, and we've had just incredible, 4 wonderful speakers.
Yes,
and it occurred to me, and in our Gospel Reflection group, we read every Friday. It's called the Litany of Humility. And I think all of us agree in the group that the most endearing quality that a man can have is that quality of humility. And brother, you have it in spades, and I'm glad that you're still here so that some people can see and hopefully tell this story to their kids and their grandkids. But I started to talk about Donna, and I called Donna up, and I said, Donna, what is it that you admire most about Mike?
Well, I'm neat. I'm clean.
No, those are the things I admire about you.
I love to do dishes.
By the way, I think I'm OCD. My boy is multiple OCD. Multiple OCD. We always went, in the 40 years we've been together, was who had the cleaner car, who had the cleaner boat. I think I lost like 8 out of 10 times. Up against anybody except Mike, I think I would have won that. But Mike, I asked Donna, and she said, you weren't she said, you are the kindest, most considerate husband, father, and just a love. And she said, I love him more and more and more.
Well, I'll have to give her a big kiss when I get home. Well, I got to believe, a lot of that comes from my upbringing with my mom and dad, great people.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, wonderful Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, it's funny. In a lot of players that reach a certain high level in a sport or whatever their endeavor is, would tell you about their parents that they could never satisfy their father. The father was always on them about something. They could never, unless they were the best. I mean, they could have a great game or paint a great painting or something. There's always something wrong with everything, and I think in that growing up for me, I think it kind of made me feel like I had to be the best at everything I did, and of course there were times where I wasn't, but I think that's what pushed me my whole career was, I wasn't satisfied unless I was the best on the high school baseball team, the best on, in college, the best as I get in the minor leagues, and of course there were years where I weren't, for sure. A lot of you remember I hit 190 one year for the Phillies, and
Donna always reminds you that. That's part of the humility, Mike.
But as my career went on, I got to expect my name to be in the paper every Sunday and the league leaders, and that may sound selfish, but I think that's what drives a lot of the great players. I think you'll find that if you look at Michael Jordan, if you go to Bryce Harper's a good example. His father pushed him like crazy, and so the father figure has a lot to do with your energy for wanting to be the best. I did not play sports. I played sports because all of my friends played it, but I was pushed to be the best of all of my friends, all the kids in the neighborhood. I was the best. I wanted to be the best, not just have fun. I needed to be the best, and I don't know whether it would have been a lot more fun for me if I wasn't that way. I often say I should have had more fun playing for the Phillies throughout my career. And if I had it to do over again, would I exchange having more fun for having the success I had? I don't know. I do know players that had an unbelievably amount of fun. I mean, Gary Matthews comes to mind. Tug McGraw comes to mind. You ever see anybody have more fun than Tug McGraw when he's playing? But I sure wasn't in that group, to tell you the truth. But
well, I think don't you think it's Mike, and knowing you and everything you do is because you want to be the best. You take it so serious, and what a lot of people don't know. Well, maybe they do. It depends how read they are. But so Mike was one of two children. Sally, his sister, who is an extreme extrovert, always a lot of fun. And Lois, your mom, same thing. Lois was always a blast. And Jack, your dad, was very serious. He was a very serious man. Anytime I was around him. And let me ask you this: did he ever, as you were growing up as his son, was he the kind who would say, "Mike, I love you"?
Absolutely not. I mean, I know he did, but my father never said "I love you" to me in my entire life. He died in his mid-80s, but I don't even think on his deathbed he said that. I mean, I probably got to the point where I was comfortable telling my father I love him, but and in fact, when speaking to my mom every Sunday morning when we talked, it was very uncomfortable for her, even into her mid-80s to 90s, to say, I love you. And I got to the point where I could say, I love you, Mom, and she'd go, me too.
That's a lot of the Irish, that's how the Irish work. But Mike, and yet, I saw you and our own children, Yus and Mike grew up with Jesse and Johnny, and you said always, I love you. I heard it all the time, and with Donna. So how did you make the switch when you weren't?
You see, I think that is kind of a segue into my Christian life. As I got older, right now, it's a daily thing in my life with Donna and my kids and you. And it's amazing how easy it is to say that nowadays. You don't have to quantify. A friend doesn't have to be at a certain level of friendship before he deserves an "I love you" from somebody. You and I tell each other we love each other.
Every time we're on the phone.
You give me a kiss on the cheek.
I do.
Don't you ever kiss me on the lips?
Mike got nervous. My boy got nervous, so I had to back her down.
So I love you. In my life is very normal now, and I'm sure it was born out of being older. It's born out of my spiritual life. It has a lot to do, I think. I went to the deep water, as Mark was talking about. I know you've been there yourself too, but I've been to the deep water where the Lord wanted to take me out on that boat and be alone with him. And for those of you who don't know it, I had a run-in with melanoma, and I'm still a cancer survivor right now, but it was pretty darn serious.
It was more than a run-in, it was life and death. And, I'd call that more than a run-in, Mike. It was life and death.
I can remember many a times when I was out in that boat, and I started to think about getting things in order, as they say, as start thinking about, who knows how long I have. I might be leaving here. I might die. I might not see my grandchildren graduate from high school. And so you start thinking of all those things, and to be able to lean on the Lord, to be able to lean on your faith. Oh my God, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. I mean, at stoplights. Forgive me, but sitting on the toilet when you're alone, I mean, there are so many times when I talk to the Lord to help me. Basically, you know what? I would actually say, your will be done. Let your will be done. I mean, I'm not begging you to keep me alive or anything, but I'm willing to, to accept whatever your will is for me here. Lead me in whatever direction you want me to go, and if it's to bring me home, bring me home. But Just give me enough time to make everything right. And it was scary, I want to tell you. That's one of those deep water things that, and you know what, my reason for bringing it up was it totally changed my life. I mean, it let me understand how to love more deeply, how to appreciate every day more, how to appreciate my wife so much more, surely my faith, but it was a life changer for me. I'm sure there are people in the audience here right now who've had that kind of an experience, but even if you haven't, you still can get that feeling by committing yourself, by turning the reins over. That happened for me in 1977, January 9th to be exact. Finally let go.
Tell us about that, Mike. Tell us about.
Well, I'll try to make it a short story, but I don't know whether some of you in the audience have probably heard of something called baseball chapel. And it's still in existence these days. Players can go to church every Sunday morning from both teams. And there'll be a speaker, a special speaker. There's a guy in the area that runs baseball chapel for the Phillies. And he arranges a speaker on Sunday morning. So the players go to chapel, and they have a message from that particular speaker that day. And our speaker back in the 70s was a gentleman named Wendell Kempton. No longer with us, but I got drug in. This is kind of funny. Back in those days, the guys that went into chapel were like considered, sissies. And Jim Cott, a name you probably have heard, went to the Hall of Fame a couple years ago, pitched for the Phillies for a few years in the 70s. Well, he drugged me into chapel. I mean, he just grabbed me by come on, Mike, you're going into chapel. And the guys out in the locker room were going, Schmidt's going to the chapel, But I went in and I listened to this guy, and his name was Wendell Kempton, and he was, I don't know, he just the coolest guy I've ever seen. Pat Croce, I use him as an example. This guy was an old barroom brawler, got in a lot of trouble with the law and all that, and he told us about his life.
He was a lot like Pat.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there listening to this guy, and his message was from James. Is it James 1? James 1, verses 2 through 6 or something. Count it all joy. Let your patience have its perfect work. And boy, did that resonate with me, because at that time I was just struggling like crazy with understanding why it got so uncomfortable for me to play baseball in Philadelphia.
You need the Bible for that one.
That's very trivial. I mean, that sounds kind of funny, but for me it was very important at the time because, I had pressure of, performing for the Phillies, and I just couldn't understand why when I made a mistake or struck out a couple times, the fans booed like they did. I couldn't understand it because, as you said, I worked so hard, to be as good as I was. So now I realize that if I just put everything on the baseball field in my life in the hands of God, that the results, he takes care of the results the way he wants to, right? I mean, the performance, all I can control is what I can control, right? Whether it's be a line drive and it ends up in the gap, or it ends up at an opposing fielder. And if I strike out, I strike out. But so it just this big sort of relief to me as a professional athlete in what was a tough town back then. I don't think it's that bad anymore. In fact, I think it's a wonderful town now. I'm looking at it like 40 years older, but
we become a gentler.
I understand you all now. So that's how it all got started. Wendell Kempton led me to my relationship with God, and we ended up having a little minor miracle happen in our lives, and that kind of pushed me over the edge. And I went along with Bob Boone and Gary Maddox, and there was a whole fraternity of us with the Phillies.
Can we talk about that miracle, the minor miracle?
Sure, I can. A guy by the name of Andre Thornton used to play with Phillies in the minor leagues, but he was with Cleveland at the time. Came to our house with his wife Gert. and wanted to pray for Donna and I that we could conceive a child. And we were having dinner, and following dinner, we all put our hands together, which was a little uncomfortable for me at the
How many
time.
years without a child at that point?
Well, we got married in '74.
Right. So 3
And
years.
we joined hands, and he said this beautiful prayer for Donna and I. And 2 days later, he was in a wreck, and his wife was killed. Yeah. Gert was right. We lost Gert in a wreck. Andre survived, but Donna became pregnant. Like that. Just like that, right at the same time. And now that is, that's a miracle. It's a miracle. That is absolute miracle.
Absolute
We had
miracle.
put in for adoption and tried, and if that wasn't a miracle, I don't know what was. And that along with Mr. Kempton and just my struggle with everything that I've had going in life at that point in time just pushed me to get on my hands and knees and ask the Lord to take over. Told him I was a big-time sinner and please forgive me of my sins, and just come into my life and take me where you want me to take me. Yeah. And boy, he's taken me on a ride.
Oh, he's taking you on a ride, and
he with a capital H.
Yeah. Mike, I remember before you moved to Florida, and you had retired, and you were at the point in your life where, again, down to your humility, you would have done anything, batting coach, everything else, and it didn't materialize the way you thought. And I hurt for you back then because I couldn't understand it. And how did that feel? You said nothing was off bounds, so I got to ask you that question.
Well, after I retired, I was kind of a lost soul. For 18 years, counting minor leagues, 20 years, at 3 o'clock every afternoon, I had gotten in the car and headed to the ballpark. It was just the way life was. And I mean, my time at the ballpark from 3 o'clock till midnight, offered a lot of joy, offered a lot of tough times, but that was the way my life was. I went to the ballpark, or I went on the road to play games on the road. And after I retired, I didn't know what to do. In fact, I said, it's 3 o'clock. Is it time to go to the ballpark? Yeah, it is. And my wife said, you retired. So I didn't really know what to do with myself after I retired. One thing I had hoped that I might be able to do was stay on with the Phillies in some role, batting coach, assistant batting coach, and somewhere. And they just let me go as fast as you could ever want to be let go. And it hurt. I spent the entire decade of the 90s totally separated from the Phillies, except for maybe going back for a function at the stadium where we had, where the whole team would be there for something. We had to go back, but I didn't go to spring training. Really had nothing to do with the Phillies. I mean, my life was basically all family and golf at that time. So.
Well, the reason I brought that up, Mike, is because, I looked at Hank Aaron and, what happened with him in Atlanta, and I'm thinking the greatest Philly that ever played and whatnot. And I'm not here to cast aspersions, but I think that was a very, very poor thing of then management to do. And I think it was great when John Middleton took over. Yeah. That he brought you right back.
Right. Well, my take on that would be, right after I retired, it kind of opened up the doors for the Phillies to bring in a lot of new people. They brought in Lee Thomas as general manager from St. Louis. They traded really quick for John Kruk. Darren Dalton rose as one of the big leaders on the team. Lenny Dykstra came from the Mets to the Phillies. So they put that whole 1993 team together that went to the World Series. And a lot of those players are still beloved today, especially John Kruk. We lost Darren Dalton, but I'm in fact a partner with Kruk in the broadcasting side, and everybody loves John Kruk. But that sort of period of Phillies baseball was very popular. Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with me retiring because they could just get rid of me, and I got out of there, and then they could do things like Chris James and bring in kind of a new regime, if you will. Right. And there wasn't really a place for me in it. Yeah. It really wasn't. Yeah. New coaching staff. Lee Thomas brought new people from. Nick Leva was brought in as the manager from the Cardinals. So it was kind of a Cardinal, Philadelphia, Philly organization and team at the time. So there was really no place for me there, and I accepted that. I didn't like it, but.
Well, I thought you accepted it. You accepted it a lot better than I accepted it. I was, it's one thing to be hurt yourself, but when you see a family member or a great friend hurt, it hurts deep. And I think we all know that. I think we've had friends like that we've just felt, And yet, Mike, I think that, we talked about our Lord and going into the deep. I think that was another time going into the deep for you, and, just added to me to your attractiveness and your great humility. It was another notch in the belt in humility.
Well, excuse me, but it's the old, we'd all understand the old saying, one step back, two steps forward, right? Yeah. And that one step back a lot of times is a tough one. Yeah. It's a very tough one. And if you're looking at me as an example, me taking that one step back opened that whole world. I met so many people, got friendly with so many people that I never would have met. Yeah. So many neat things happened in my life in the decade of 90s where I had nothing to do with baseball.
It's true. Fishing, Viking, all the great
losing money selling boats.
Exactly. Right. Buying and selling boats.
We were out on the water, weren't we?
We were out on the water. Mike almost had that Viking franchise in Palm Beach, brother.
That's
look
right.
Look at that thing now. Arthur talked out of that one, but that would have been a beauty.
But then our good old friend Larry Boa. Let's hear it for Larry Boa. Yeah. Larry wasn't my best friend when we played ball, but he and I are very close now. But Larry invited me back to spring training in 2000 when Larry was the manager. And he gave me an assignment. He wanted me to spend time with Pat Burrell and Scott Rowland during spring training. I said, well, that's pretty cool. He said, I know you learned how to cut your strikeouts down, and I want you to hang with those guys everywhere, and I want you to work with them, talk to them, and everything. So I thought that was pretty nice. And I stayed in spring training for, excuse me, I had a little virus. I'm losing my voice. But I stayed in spring training for 2 weeks, worked with those guys, and then I got invited back by Larry the next year and the next year. So for 10 years, my relationship with the Phillies grew and grew and grew and grew. And I got back to being an integral part of the organization. And, some of it was about baseball, but more of it now has become about public relations, community relations, sponsor relations, suite holders relations, do a lot of Q&As, do a lot of dining with people, play a big role in their, in the Phillies charities. And I enjoy the Sunday broadcasts we do. So we're all the way up now to 2000, almost 20 years of me being back in the fold. Yeah. And I so much enjoy my relationship with the Phillies now, the Phillies fans, and the people in the dining room, the press dining room. I mean, there's people now that I go by and say hello to every day, and the integral part of the back. In the back of the stadium, you know what I mean? The people I would have never known existed. Yeah. Well, I knew somebody had to take care of, behind the scenes stuff, but I would have never been in behind the scenes myself. Yeah. Yeah. And now I'm sitting there with those people every Sunday, eating lunch, eating breakfast or whatever, and it's just like totally normal for me, and I love it. Yeah. I love being a man of the people. I really do.
See, and that's where you're most comfortable, Mike. That's where you're most comfortable because you are a man.
Yeah, and it's basically just, hi, Mike, how you doing today? What are you talking about today? It's not, Mike, can I have an autograph? Mike. Now, there'll be a time or two when somebody will quietly say, Mike, could you do a couple autographs? And then we'll do it in private or something like that. But it's such a wonderful feeling. I hope it lasts for a few more years. But, it's a lot of fun. And You know, I thank the good Lord for this whole process of being away, coming back, you know, getting deeper into it, and I can't wait till the season starts.
Well, Mike, it's been unbelievable. It's an unbelievable ride, unbelievable love that you've given us here in the city of Philadelphia, and to have somebody that we can look up to like you, to have somebody we can have our children look up to, our grandchildren look up to as a role model, not the guy who is hot dogging, never did, but I mean, you look at that reel that Bill put together, and it still gives me chills, and that's why I wanted you to sit down with me, because Mike hadn't seen that. And hopefully it had the same effect on you, Mike.
I want to thank would I be right in saying, well, let's just say the line of young men that were up here, the two young men that wore my jerseys?
Absolutely. How about that? The seminarians.
That was pretty sweet.
Give them some love. That was great.
Where are you? I got a picture of that right here, and I'm going to take it home with me and show it to my wife. I do.
That's it. So Donna's going to see that. And Mike, you spent the day with us, and I'm just so happy because I remember when you got the cancer, and I was thinking in my head, boy, I just wish we had him at Man Up Philly. And I was thinking to myself, and you know, Mike, you and I are both prayer warriors, and I'm thinking to myself, Lord, just, not now. Don't take him now. And it was a close call, brother, but it's so glad to have you back, and we're so glad you said yes to Man Up Philly.
And I have to have my final statement here as well.
You got it, brother.
This guy here is special. He's the most unselfish guy I've ever met. He's closer to the Lord than maybe any person that I've ever met. And what he's doing with Man Up is absolutely unbelievable. And I want the tape of this show so I can take it in my travels to show it to people. And I think Schmidt is one of the great, great people in Philadelphia. And for all of us who know him, it's a blessing. Luce, I love you. Luce. I got nervous there and I called you Luce. Wait a minute. Lucifer. No, it wasn't Lucifer.
Hey, listen, with a name like mine, it's like a boy named Sue growing up. You know what I mean? I
love you. We all love you, baby. I got to give you a kiss. Not on the mouth.
He's got a cold.
Thank you.
Michael Jack Schmidt. Michael Jack Schmidt. Standing O. I've never got one of these, Mike.
Schmidt, everybody.
All right, I can say it now.